Professor Celtic stood at the front of Lecture Hall 7, all four of his arms clasped behind his back in what he clearly believed was an impressive pose. His chitinous blue exoskeleton gleamed under the soft bioluminescent lighting, and his compound eyes swept across the assembled music students with the kind of condescension that only a tenured academic could truly perfect. "Welcome. Welcome," he announced, his voice resonating through the translation. "Implants every student wore, too. Comparative Species Ethics, the cornerstone course of xenosociological studies here at Galactic University." The classroom was a rainbow of biological diversity, pluvians, those translucent jellyfish-like beings bobbed gently in their water-filled attendant spheres. The Tessics, crystalline creatures that looked like music someone had given sentience to a chandelier, refracted light in quiet contemplative music patterns. A group of Finari, small fox-like bipeds covered in silver fur, sat in the front row, taking meticulous notes. And then there were the humans, 7 of them, clustered together in the middle section, like they were afraid the other species might bite, which was ironic considering what was about to happen. And GT, music, and GT, humanity had only been admitted to the galactic community 6 months ago, and their presence at the university was still something. Music of a novelty, a controversial novelty. There had been 3 separate petitions, music, to review their application, all citing concerns about their tumultuous historical records and unfortunate propensity for conflict resolution. But the Galactic Council, music, in its infinite wisdom and commitment to diversity, had approved Earth's membership anyway. Probationary membership, sure, but membership nonetheless. Celtics had voted music against it. Today, he continued, warming to his favorite subject, which was himself, we begin with a fundamental question that separates music, the civilized species, from the merely sapient. We shall explore the moral frameworks that govern our interactions, the ethical boundaries that define us as beings of higher consciousness. One of the Tessics, music, chimed softly, which the translator rendered as this: "Sounds fascinating, Professor. Indeed. It is, indeed it is." Celtic's mandibles, music, clicked together in what might have been a smile. "Now to establish our baseline understanding." And GT, music, and GT, I want to begin with a simple thought experiment, a way to gauge where each of you stands on music, the most fundamental question of morality. He paused dramatically, letting the weight music of his words settle over the classroom like a blanket of academic superiority. The humans looked mildly interested. One of them, a young woman with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, was openly eating something from a crinkly package. Another, broad-shouldered man with close-cropped hair, was slouched so far down in his seat he was practically horizontal. Celtics made a mental note to report music their casual demeanor to the Dean of Student Affairs. "This question," he said, his voice dropping to what he imagined was a profound whisper, "will help us understand the vast moral distance between species. It will illuminate the path that separates those of us who have evolved beyond music, our base instincts, from those who perhaps still carry the shadows of their primitive past." A Finari student's ears perked up with interest. So let me ask you all. NGT, music. NGT, and please be honest in your responses, as this is a safe space for philosophical exploration. Celtics spread all four arms wide in a gesture of academic benevolence. The question is this: who here in this room has personally and directly taken the life of another sentient being? He fully expected silence, perhaps one or two. Music, nervous shuffles, maybe a Pluvian would bob uncertainly, misunderstanding the question through the translation music matrix. What he got instead would require therapy and possibly a career change. For exactly 3 seconds, music, the classroom was silent. Then, with the synchronized precision of a military drill team, 6 human hands shot into the air. Celtics blinked. All 47 lenses of his compound eyes blinked independently, creating a wave effect across his face. Music that would have been comical under different circumstances. Excuse me. NGT, music. NGT. The humans kept their hands up. One of them, the slouching military-looking guy, had raised his hand so casually he might have been hailing a taxi. Around the room, the reaction was immediate and varied. A Pluvian sphere literally turned cloudy with distress. Music, their gelatinous body pulsing in what the translation software rendered as a series of horrified squeaks. The Tessics began music, refracting light in sharp, agitated patterns, filling the room with anxiety-inducing rainbows. 3 Fenari students physically recoiled, their silver fur standing on end. Surely, Celtic said, music, his voice climbing half an octave. Surely you misunderstood the question. I am asking about sentient beings, conscious, thinking, feeling creatures with inner lives and social bonds, not plants or something. Yeah, we got it, said the woman. Music with the ponytail, her hand still raised. She'd stopped eating her snack. That seemed significant somehow. Sentient beings, people, that's what you asked. We heard you just fine, Professor, added another human, a young man with glasses and a university hoodie. That read philosophy department. Even the philosophy major had his hand up. The philosophy major, Celtic's mandibles began clicking rapidly, an involuntary stress response. Then you are telling me that 6 out of 7 humans in this classroom have actually killed someone? Yeah, the military guy shrugged with one shoulder, his hand still raised with the other arm. I mean, you asked, one of the Tessics made a sound like wind chimes falling down a staircase and had to be steadied by their neighbor. This is extraordinary, Celtic stammered, music, his academic composure crumbling like a sandcastle at high tide. This is Earth's application assured us that your species had moved beyond casual violence. Music, your own representatives claimed you had achieved a state of relative peace. We have, said a third human, a young woman in an agriculture program jacket. Her hand was still up and she seemed genuinely confused by the fuss. I mean, we're not at war, music, with ourselves right now or anything. This is actually a pretty chill period in human history. Chill, a Pluvian's translation came through as a shriek. Celtic's forearms began gesturing music frantically, like he was trying to physically push the information away. But the galactic standard music for admission requires species to have achieved at least 4 generations of nonviolent conflict resolution. your applications, music. Your essays, your cultural surveys, all indicated, oh, we're nonviolent. Music. The military guy interrupted. Comparatively speaking, I mean it's been like, 80 years since the last World War. That's pretty good for us. 80 years is nothing, Celtic's voice. Music had gone full screech now. The Pluvians have not had an internal conflict in 4,000 music years. Well, yeah, but they're jellyfish. Philosophy student said music. Reasonably, how would they even fight? Aggressive bobbing, the Pluvian in question literally fled the room there. Sphere rolling toward the exit with surprising music speed, Celtic's eyes swept desperately across the humans, looking for salvation, and landed on the one student who didn't have their hand raised, a young man with tired eyes and a medical program insignia on his bag. You, Celtic's voice cracked music. With hope, you there, human student. Rivera, according to my roster, you do not have your hand raised. Rivera looked up, seeming surprised to be called on. Oh, yeah, I was actually trying to thank the cosmic void. Celtics clutched his chest with two arms, while the other two gesticulated wildly. At least one of your species has the moral foundation to answer honestly. At least one human in this room has not taken a life. Rivera opened his mouth, then closed it, then opened it again. Actually, Professor, about that we will get to you in a music moment, Mr. Rivera. First, I need to understand the rest of your species. Celtics turned back to the six raised hands, his academic curiosity warring with his mounting existential horror. Explain yourselves now, starting with you. He pointed music at the military guy, who lowered his hand and sat up slightly. Sure thing, Professor. Name's Jackson. By music the way. Combat engineer. 3 tour honorably discharged. He said it the way someone might mention they worked in accounting, so yeah. Sentient beings, that's a confirmed. Music, yes, from me. Celtics made a sound like steam escaping from a broken pipe. This was going to be a very long class. Celtics had stopped pacing and started swaying slightly like a tree in a strong wind. His forearms hung limp at his sides, all the professorial dignity leaking out of him like air from a punctured lung. Explain, he croaked. And GT, music. And GT, in detail. I need to understand how 7 representatives of a species applying music for galactic community membership could possibly, how you could. So casually he gestured vaguely at Jackson. Proceed. Jackson scratched his chin. Well, see, the thing is, I was military. That's kind of the job description. You sign up, you train, you deploy, and sometimes you end up in situations where it's you or them. Pretty straightforward, really. Straightforward, Celtics repeated weakly. Yeah, I mean, I didn't like it. If that helps, it's not like I woke up every morning thinking, gee, I sure hope I get to shoot someone today, but orders are orders, rules music of engagement are rules of engagement, and when someone's actively trying to kill you and your unit. Jackson shrugged. Again, you do what you got to do. Atessics began refracting light music in ultraviolet frequencies, which the translation software interpreted as, I need to call my parents right now. You speak of this. And GT, music. And GT, said, his voice climbing again, as though it were filing administrative paperwork. Music. I mean, there was a lot of paperwork. Involved, actually, every discharge. Music of a weapon requires like 3 different incident reports, and next. Celtics practically screamed, "You." Agriculture student, the young woman with the ponytail brightened, "Oh me. I'm bait, yes, so I grew up on a farm. In Montana, in a farm, Celtics. Mandibles clicked so rapidly they created a buzzing sound. What does agricultural work have to do with taking sentient life? Bait blinked. Oh, no. No, sorry, I should clarify, not from farming. I mean, we did have to cull the herd sometimes, and there was that year with the sick chickens, but you said sentient life, so I figured you meant like actual people. Yes, actual people. Sentient beings with thoughts and dreams. Music and right, yeah, so that would be from hunting season, deer mostly, though. There was that wild boar that got into our property once, and my dad and I had to. Deer are not sentient, Bait frowned. I mean, you don't know that for sure. They're pretty smart, they recognize patterns, they communicate, they have social structures they do not have music, language, or technology, or Celtic stopped himself, 2 of his arms clutching his head. Wait, you said mostly deer, what else? Oh, you know, elk, some wild turkey, couple of coyotes that were threatening the livestock. My cousin and I got a bear once, but that was kind of a special permit situation. You hunt bears? Well, yeah, but only when the population needs management. It's actually really important for ecosystem balance. If you don't control the predator populations, they ecosystem balance. Celtics looked like he music might vibrate apart into his component molecules. You kill apex predators for sport, not just for sport, Bait said defensively. We eat them too. Bear meat's actually pretty good if you cook it right, though. You got to watch out for trichinosis. Next student, Celtics whispered. Defeated, please, before I lose what remains of my sanity. The philosophy student raised his hand hesitantly. A high Tom, so full disclosure, mine's a little less intentional. A tiny spark of hope flickered in Celtics's eyes. Accidental self-defense, more like car accident, hit a deer on Highway 47. It died on impact, and there was this squirrel once that ran under my tire before I could stop. Oh, and I accidentally left a mousetrap set in my apartment and forgot about it. So music, there's that, and mosquitoes obviously, but I'm assuming you don't count those are animals. Celtics's voice had gone shrill. I specifically said sentient beings. Right, but the way you worded it was kind of ambiguous. Personally and directly taken the life of another sentient being doesn't specify which kind of sentient being. And there's actually a lot of philosophical music debate about the boundaries of sentience. Like, are we talking about self-awareness, theory of mind, the ability to suffer? Because depending on your framework. Humans, Celtics roared. Did you kill any humans? The classroom went silent. Tom adjusted his glasses. Oh, you should have just said that, then. No, my hand shouldn't be up. He lowered his hand. Then why? Because you asked about sentient beings, and I think it's pretty speciesist to assume only humans count as sentient. I mean, we share like 98% of our DNA with chimps. And they use tools, they have culture. They, oh my God. Jackson muttered. Tom, you're going to give the professor an aneurysm. Do professors even have aneurysms? Bait whispered. Let's not find out. Another human replied. Celtics slumped against Music his desk, 3 arms supporting his weight while the 4th covered his eyes. Around the room, alien students were gathering their belongings and edging toward exits. The Fenari had formed a protective huddle in the corner, their ears flat, music against their heads. So Jackson said into the silence, "Just to clarify, Prof, you meant like actual music combat, human on human violence?" Kalthix nodded weakly. "Oh well, yeah. Still me then." Hand goes back, music up. Bait raised her hand again too. "Actually, yeah, me too. My grandma was a nurse in the Pacific Theater during World War II, and she's got some stories, let me tell you, and my uncle did too." "Touring your grandmother?" Kalthix looked up. "Your elderly relatives also engaged in lethal combat?" "Well, yeah. War's kind of a multi-generational music thing for humans. Most families have somebody who served in something." Jackson nodded. "Music. Statistically speaking, Prof, most adult humans have probably killed something. Music at some point, even if it's just putting down a sick pet or hitting an animal with their car. We're kind of involved with death, you know. It's part of the deal." "Part of the deal," Kalthix repeated numbly. "Death is part of the deal. And GT, music. And GT, hey," Bait added helpfully, "at least we're honest about it. Could be worse." Kalthix's compound eyes suddenly swiveled to fixate on Rivera, who had been sitting quietly through the entire exchange, his hands still down, looking increasingly uncomfortable. "You." Kalthix breathed, and suddenly his voice was filled with desperate reverence. "Rivera, medical student, healer, surely you represent the better angels of humanity's nature. Surely you." Rivera raised his hand slowly. "Actually, Professor, I need to correct something." Kalthix froze. "I don't have my hand up," Rivera continued, "because you asked who killed someone, past tense, simple. Past, yes, but if you're asking who has the highest body count in this room." Rivera's hand went all the way up. "That would be me, somewhere in the back of the classroom." A tesseract shattered. And GT, music. And GT, Kalthix made a sound that the translation software couldn't process. It came through as a series of a condor error beeps followed by what might have been sobbing. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no. You healer, you are studying music. Medicine, the entire point of your profession is to preserve life, not to..." "Hold up, Prof," Jackson interrupted. Music holding up a hand before Rivera gets into his whole thing. "I feel like maybe we should clarify some stuff. Because you're looking a little green." "Well, greener, bluer you look unwell is what I'm saying." "Clarify." Kalthix's voice had gone hoarse. "What could you possibly music clarify that would make this better?" "Well, for starters, the dear thing, those aren't sentient, not by galactic standards. Anyway. So Tom and Bates' numbers should probably already understood that." "Okay. Okay, just checking, but also like, we're not monsters, you know. It's not like we're running around killing people for fun. There are rules, laws, consequences." "Yeah," Bate chimed in. "It's actually super illegal to kill people music in most places now. We've made a lot of progress on that front. Most places." Kalthix repeated faintly. "Now. Right, yeah, there are still some holdout regions music with capital punishment and active war zones and stuff, but on the whole, murder rates have been trending down for decades." "We're doing great." Tom pushed his Glasses up, there's actually a fascinating correlation between economic, music development and reduced interpersonal violence. Steven Pinker wrote this whole book about how we're living in the most peaceful era of human music history. Your most peaceful era still involves casual admission of killing. Celtic shrieked. The remaining Fenari music bolted for the door. Jackson leaned back in his chair. I mean, if it makes you feel better. I've got like maybe a dozen confirmed. That's not that many. There were guys in my unit with way higher numbers. Dozen, Celtics wheezed. You say a dozen the way I would say I have read a dozen books. Well, yeah, it was war. Wars have casualties. That's kind of the defining music feature. How many wars has your species fought? The humans exchanged glances, like total bait asked, throughout all of history, or just the big ones? Or do you mean per year? Tom added, because the definition of war versus conflict versus military intervention gets kind of fuzzy and forget it. Celtic's music clawed at his desk with two hands while the other two covered his face. I do not want to. No, I withdraw the question. Wikipedia lists like 250 major conflicts just in the 20th century. Tom continued anyway. Because philosophy music students cannot help themselves, but that's not counting civil wars, revolutions, insurgencies, and don't even get started on the ones that didn't make it into the history books. Music, Jackson added. There's a lot of fighting that happens that nobody bothers to write down. One of the remaining tesseracts began glowing an alarming shade of crimson. My grandmother Bates said music suddenly, her voice taking on a fond, reminiscent quality, used to tell me about music rationing during the war. She was just a kid, but she remembers the air raid sirens and the victory gardens and collecting scrap metal music for the war effort. She said everyone contributed, even the children. Children participated in war. Celtics looked music like he might actually faint if his species could faint. Well, not on the front lines, mostly just support roles. Although there were some resistance movements that stopped talking, and before that my great-great-grandfather fought in World War, got gassed at the Somme but survived. Family legend says he, what is a world war? Celtics demanded, how can a war be world-encompassing? How is that even possible? Oh, it's when most of the major powers all fight each other at once. Jackson explained music helpfully. We've had two of those. Well, two big ones. Some historians argue there were others, but two. Yeah, they were like 20 years apart. Really sucked. Tens of millions dead. Each time tens of millions. Well, yeah. Industrial warfare, you know, once you've got mechanized everything and aircraft music and modern logistics, the body counts really start piling up. Celtic stared at Jackson with all 47 lenses of his compound eyes. You say this, he whispered, as though it is a minor inconvenience. I mean, it was pretty bad for the people who lived through it. Jackson acknowledged, but that was like a century ago. Ancient history. We've learned a lot since then. Learned what? Exactly. And GT, music. And GT, better weapons mostly, Bates said. And medical care, that's probably why Rivera's got such a high count. Honestly, modern battlefield medicine is crazy advanced. Every eye in the room swiveled to Rivera, who had gone very still and very pale. We were going to get there eventually, He muttered, "Yes," Celtic said, his voice dropping to something dangerous and desperate. "We were, but first I need to understand something." He swept his gaze music across all six humans with raised hands. "You fight each other. You kill each other. Your grandmothers participated in this. Your children contributed, and yet you sit here in this classroom together as though it is normal." "Well, yeah," Tom said, "we're not fighting now. Different countries, different music, time period, different conflicts. It's not personal. Not personal. Plus, statistically speaking, most humans never directly participate in lethal combat music." Tom continued, "The vast majority of people live their whole lives without killing another person. We just happen to be a skewed sample music because you are humanity's representatives." Celtics was back to screaming, "Earth sent you to show us the music best of your species, and every single one of you." He stopped, spun to face Rivera. "Music except you," he breathed. "Medical student Rivera, you are different. You are." Rivera finally raised his hand all the way up. "Professor," he said quietly, "I really need to explain something." Rivera stood up slowly. "And GT, music. And GT, his medical bag sliding off his shoulder and onto his chair. He looked tired, not the kind of tired that comes from a late night studying, but the bone-deep exhaustion of someone who has seen things they cannot unsee. "The reason I didn't raise my hand earlier," Rivera began, his voice steady but soft, "isn't because I haven't killed anyone. It's because the question you asked was in simple past tense. Who has killed? Like it's something that happened and ended." Celtic's mandibles music stopped clicking. "For me, it's ongoing, present, perfect, continuous. I am someone who kills, who music has to make that choice over and over, and who will probably have to make it again tomorrow or next week or whenever I'm back on shift at the hospital." "But you are a healer," Celtics protested weakly. "Yeah, I am. And healing means making choices about who gets to live." Rivera's hands were shaking slightly. "Jackson over there, his kills were in combat, clear enemies, circumstances, clear rules of engagement. Mine are patients, people who trusted me to save them." The classroom had gone completely silent. Even the other humans had stopped their casual banter. "Triage," Rivera continued. "That's the word for it. When you have more patience than resources, music, you have to choose. This person gets the ventilator, this person doesn't. This person gets the surgery, this person gets palliative care. And GT, music. And GT, you are actively deciding who lives and who dies, and you have to make that call in 30 seconds while someone is bleeding out in front of you. But that is not the same as Celtic started, isn't it?" Rivera's voice sharpened. "I've disconnected life support from patients who had no chance of recovery. I've administered medication that I knew would ease pain but also hasten death. I've performed battlefield triage exercises where I put black tags on people. Black means expectant, means we're not even going to try because our resources are better spent elsewhere. That's a death sentence I'm writing." Bate had gone very quiet. Jackson was staring at his desk. "And the thing is," Rivera said, his voice dropping again, "and GT, music. And GT, when Jackson kills someone in combat, he can tell himself it was necessary. It Was justified, it was the enemy, when I let someone die, when I choose someone else over them, I have to live with the fact music that they were someone's father, someone's daughter, someone who came to me for help and I said no, or I said yes but I wasn't good enough, wasn't fast enough, made the wrong call. That is a completely different ethical framework. Celtics managed medical necessity versus intentional violence. Is it though? Tom, the philosophy student, interjected quietly. The trolley problem, Professor. If you pull the lever to save 5 people but kill one, did you kill that one person? Rivera's pulling levers every day. Rivera nodded. I've made mistakes that cost lives. I've been too slow. I've misdiagnosed. I've had people die on my table because I wasn't skilled enough yet, and yeah, I was learning. I was doing my best, but they're still dead. I killed them through incompetence, through limitation, through being human and fallible. No. Celtic said music desperately. No. That is not the same thing. Last month, Rivera continued, and his voice was barely a whisper now, I had to do an emergency field amputation during my paramedic rotation, crush injury, trap patient, building fire spreading. I had to take his leg with a trauma saw to get him out in time. I saved his life, but I also took his leg. I made that choice. I did the cutting. And I have to carry that. He wakes up every day missing a limb. Because of me, you saved him. Celtics said I maimed him. Both things are true. Rivera's laugh was bitter, and that's the thing about medical killing versus combat killing. Professor Jackson gets to believe his targets were enemies. I have to know mine were patients. Jackson followed orders. I had to give them. Jackson can tell himself it was necessary for the mission. I have to tell myself it was necessary for the greater good while I'm looking into someone's eyes and watching them realize I've chosen to let them die. The weight of his words settled over the classroom like a heavy blanket. So when you asked who here has killed Rivera finished, I didn't raise my hand because I didn't know music. If you wanted to hear about the sheer number or the weight or the ongoing nature of it, but if we're comparing body counts, he looked around at his fellow humans. I've let more people die in the last year of medical school than Jackson probably saw in 3 tours, not because I'm worse at my job than he was at his, but because my job is choosing who gets music to live when not everyone can. Celtics had stopped moving entirely. All 4 arms hung limp. His compound eyes had gone dark, and the really messed up part, Rivera added, I'm going to go back on shift next week, and I'm going to make those music choices again because someone has to, because that's what doctors do. We don't just save lives, Professor. And GT, music. And GT, we decide which ones are worth saving. We play God every single day, and we're just supposed to be okay with it. I need, Celtic said faintly, to sit down. You are sitting down, Bate pointed out. Then I need to lie. Music down. Maybe we should take a break, Tom suggested, but before Celtics could respond, the door burst open, and the department head, a floating orb-like being named Coordinator Fex, bobbed into the room. Professor Celtics, we've had 17 transfer requests in the last 5 minutes. 3 Tessix music students are in medical care, and the Peruvian ambassador is demanding an emergency session of the Interspecies Student Affairs Committee. What in the name of the music cosmic void is happening in? Your effects stopped sensory stalks, swiveling to take in the scene. Fleeing music, alien students, the humans sitting calmly in their seats. Celtic slumped over his desk looking like he'd aged a century in the last hour. Humans, Celtics croaked. The humans happened. Coordinator Fex's sensory stalks quivered with what might have been alarm or confusion or possibly a migraine. The translation software was having trouble keeping up. I see, Fex said slowly in that careful tone authority figures use when they absolutely do not see. Perhaps we should conclude the session early and reconvene when class is canceled, Celtics announced, pushing himself up from his desk with all four arms. For the rest of the semester, possibly forever, I need to reconvene the curriculum committee and drink. Can I drink? Do we have alcohol that works on my biology? Professor, you cannot simply cancel an entire course. Watch me. Celtic stumbled toward the door, his exoskeleton making clicking sounds that suggested structural integrity issues. I'm going to file a formal report. Music with the Galactic Council. Earth's probationary status needs immediate review. These beings are a threat to galactic peace and my personal sanity. We're really not that bad, Bait offered. Helpfully, Celtic spun around music so fast he nearly lost his balance. Not that bad. You hunt apex predators for sport, you fight world wars, your medics have existential music crises about playing God. I mean, when you put it like that, Jackson admitted. How else would I put music? It Rivera raised a tentative hand. For what it's worth, Professor, most humans do feel bad about the killing thing. It's not like we enjoy it. Most humans, Tom corrected. Statistically, there's a small percentage who do not finish that music sentence, Celtic shrieked. Coordinator Fex bobbed between the professor and the students. Perhaps everyone should return to their dormitories while we sort this music out. Humans, I trust you can find your way back without incident. Sure thing, Jackson said, music standing and stretching. Hey, speaking of which, we're doing Taco Tuesday in the common room tonight. If anyone wants to join, Professor, you're welcome to come. Might help with the whole cultural understanding music thing. Celtic's compound eyes somehow managed to narrow despite being compound eyes. What is a taco? Oh, it's great. Bait was already packing up her bag. It's this food from Earth where music. You take a folded flatbread and fill it with food. Celtics interrupted. You are inviting me to consume Earth food? Yeah. We've got ground beef, shredded chicken, beans, cheese, salsa, ground beef. Celtics's voice had gone very quiet. That is an animal product, is it not? Well, yeah, it's cow meat. We grind it up and season it and meat. Oh boy, Rivera muttered, you eat dead animals. Celtics was backing toward the door now, all four arms raised as if to ward off an attack. You kill them and then you consume their flesh. The humans exchanged confused glances. I mean, yeah, Tom said. How else would you eat meat? Do you guys have vegetarian music, cows or something? We do not eat animals at all. Celtic's voice music had achieved a pitch that the translation software marked as beyond recommended parameters. The galactic community has been vegetarian for 3,000 music years. The consumption of sentient beings is considered the ultimate barbarism. Oh well, cows aren't sentient, Bait said, "Not really, I mean they're sweet. And everything, but you farm them, you raise them specifically to kill and eat them, that's what farming is." "Professor," Bates said, now looking genuinely confused, "what did you think farms were for?" Celtics made a sound like a boiling kettle. Then he turned and fled the classroom, his legs moving so fast they blurred. Coordinator Fex bobbed after him, sensory stalks music waving frantically. Professor, please, we need to discuss the curriculum. The curriculum can go extinct," came Celtic's fading music scream from the hallway. The 7 humans sat in silence for a moment. So, Jackson said, "Music eventually. That went well. Did we just get our professor hospitalized?" Tom asked. "Technically, he left of his own volition," Rivera pointed out. "We just answered his questions honestly. Maybe we should have lied," Bates suggested. "And say what? That humans sustain ourselves through photosynthesis." "I'm just saying we might have broken the entire galactic education system." Jackson stood up and slung his bag over his shoulder. "You know what? Not our problem. We were honest. If they can't handle music, honesty, that's on them. Now come on. We've got tacos to prep, and I'm not letting Professor Squeamish ruin Taco Tuesday." The others followed him out there, voices echoing down the hallway. "Do you think they'll actually music kick us out of the university? Now we paid tuition, they're stuck with us. I still think the dear thing was a misunderstanding." Tom let it go. "Music." Their voices faded as they rounded the corner, leaving the empty classroom in silence. On Professor Music Celtic's desk, his tablet chimed with an incoming message. The screen displayed an emergency notice from the Galactic University Administration. "Urgent, all faculty teaching courses with human students are required to attend mandatory sensitivity training and species integration counseling. Earth's application to teach galactic cooking 101 has been unanimously music denied. The Interspecies Culinary Committee has submitted their collective resignation. Please advise." Somewhere in the distance, a tesseract shattered for the 3rd time that day. And in the human dormitory common room, the smell of seasoned ground beef began to waft through the ventilation system, triggering 17 more emergency calls to campus security and 1 request for immediate evacuation. Humanity had been part of the galactic community for 6 months. It was going to be a long probationary period.